Welcome to the Troy Kearns podcast, where we talk all things real estate, business, entrepreneurship, and we go down the rabbit hole. And I know we're going down the rabbit hole today because I got my good buddy, Tyson DeLaCruz. He is biz, develop, mindset. He's about everything. He's a super smart guy, and I'm happy to have him on the show today.
Thank you so much, man. Really appreciate you having me, man.
Man, I appreciate you being here. You're a super cool guy. Like I said, you're one of the first guys that was kind of inspired me to get into social media, just seeing all the cool stuff that you were doing out there. And I was like, this guy's letting his personality roll.
That's what it's about, I think, man. You know, it's just really just being yourself in front of the camera and just sharing your experiences. And then people like you because people buy and sell from people that they like, man.
100%. So for the people who don't know you, can you talk a little bit about who is Tyson DeLaCruz? Where were you born? What's your family like? Where do you get your motivation from? Just kind of let our audience know.
Yeah, absolutely. I was born and raised in Las Vegas. So I'm a Las Vegan. My grandma and my mother are actually immigrants from Germany.
Okay.
So they came out here. They originally settled in New York and then moved all around because my grandfather was in the military. And then we ended up here, and that's where I was born. I got into real estate about 2014-ish.
Okay.
REO agent, doing traditional REO sales for a bigger REO brokerage out here. And
which one was that?
it was Rock Realty.
You work with Eric, my boy Eric Roth?
Yeah, Eric and Brian Pelican.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Eric is the guy who set that whole thing up. You know, him and I traveled Asia in 2012 together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Eric's like my homie.
Yeah.
And Brian is my homie.
Yeah, Brian's such a cool dude, man.
Yeah.
Like, he showed me just so much about REOs and the process of REOs, process of foreclosures, because they were huge back then.
Right, absolutely.
And I remember just walking in the first time in that office, and I'm like, I saw these agents. They were a little bit older, well-seasoned.
Is he on Cheyenne?
Yeah. Well-seasoned agents. I walked in. There was only a few on the sales floor, but I quickly realized that I didn't want to have to show houses, because these guys.
How quick?
Yeah, super quick, 3 to 5 steps in the door.
Yeah,
I realized those guys have to show houses, they had to show houses, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing that at all. So I was just kind of in the search to actually acquire real estate.
So you knew going right in when you picked him that your motivation was, I'm going to go in here, learn as much as I can, but my plan is to learn how to buy real estate.
Yeah, because I knew that the quickest way to financial freedom, wealth building, was always to acquire real estate and have that passive income.
How did you know that?
Just growing up, man. I used to love Lifestyles and the Rich and Famous. Robin Leach.
He's living out here now. You know that, right?
I saw him. He was doing some sleazy bikini.
Oh yeah, he'll do whatever, man. We could probably have him on the podcast.
He was that. That was really inspiring to see so many people, with these beautiful houses, and I'm like, man, these guys are doing something right. I knew I didn't want to just be an agent, a transactional type person. So I was in search to figure out how foreclosures work, how to acquire real estate. I didn't have a bunch of money back then, so how am I going to acquire real estate? Credit was kind of shot back then too. That's how I met my first money partner. Actually, he bought a couple properties from me, and he didn't really want anything to do with me. A few of
those.
I asked him several times because he built some subdivisions in the 90s and bought land and built 4 or 5 homes on it.
Is his name Ken Baxter?
No.
Okay.
I've heard of Ken, man.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah, I've heard of Ken, man.
Jim Rhodes?
No.
Okay.
I was just inspired by that, and he didn't want to take me out to lunch, didn't want to do anything. So I found out what properties he owned, and I literally would go to those homes and wait for him to show up because they were active projects. And I would just call my general real estate leads while I'm waiting for him.
Sitting in the car?
Yeah, sitting in the car, or I would sit in the rehab.
Right.
I would sit in the rehab on the fireplace while these guys are doing construction. And he would show up, and I'm like, hey,
what's up, man?
What's up? I'm here. Can I take you to lunch? Because I really was interested.
So you understood that if you want to get what you want, you just have to go and get it.
To answer your question regarding motivation, as a child, I always had this inkling to kind of see where my boundaries are. See what I can do outside of the box. I had a little bike shop when I was a kid, did some pooper scooper stuff, mowed lawns. I hired people to help mow lawns for me. So it was a really cool experience growing up. And
Right.
I never really took authority and like direction well from like people who
must have been growing up the same way.
Somebody would tell me like, hey, you got to do this, because inside my family was very militant.
Right.
So taking direction, especially the way that it was delivered to me as a child, I didn't respond well to it.
How was it delivered?
It was just militant. Like,
I'm that dad.
like,
sorry.
like spelling words, I had to be at the table, done with breakfast, ready for spelling words, like neat and tight. And then if I got one spelling word incorrect, start over, and start over, which is great because that showed me
perfection,
and taught me work ethic,
Right.
So
you hated it then. It made you kind of who you are today, and it also made you who you are today in a good way too.
Yeah.
So those fundamental work habits, like, they suck, and they kind of push us out of where we want to be. I was the same type of kid, pressing the boundaries. I had like a 1.8 GPA. My parents were like, "We're holding you back," and I'm like, "Listen, no, I could do this. I'm just not."
Yeah. I found school super boring.
Me too.
Super boring, and the way that they taught, and I was like, I'm never gonna use this geometry. I use geometry now, but I'm like, I'm never going to use this geometry or algebra.
You probably would have forgotten about it, but then you had to relearn it.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, there has to be. I love doing art in school. I love doing creative things in school, but never like the fundamental basics. English wasn't a good
the
subject
school
of mine.
system as we know it, I mean, it's set up to train employees, right?
Yep.
It's set up for if you are, I'm raising my family. I have 2 8-year-old twins right now, and we're very specific about what we're doing. And we realize, because it's all like, as you get older, you realize, oh, that's kind of like behind the curtain a little bit.
Yeah.
You realize the school system is set up to train people to be employees. And so that's great. I think once we get past, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, it's time to really, really hone in on like who they're hanging out with and stuff like that, because I'm trying to teach my kids, like, they're going to learn how to frame, they're going to learn how to do HVAC, and they're going to learn good scholastics, but they're going to learn life skills too.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge component that's actually missing from schools, is like the lifestyle skills, the teamwork. I never really called it cheating, I called it teamwork, like.
Well, yeah, when you're the guy who doesn't know anything and doesn't understand anything, you go, I was a big cheater. I'm not gonna me too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you know all the answers. You're the smart one in class. You're my friend.
Great. I always used to sit next to this girl.
How far could you see from?
Oh, she was right here. Always in like kind of proficiency kind of exams and like math and quizzes, and she would always sit right here. And every time we would get seated next together, she would look at me and she's like, okay, like. After a while, she got the rhythm. You slide the paper over just a little bit,
right,
so I could see it.
And then you get the ones who don't want to play ball.
No,
they're like, "Oh, you're looking. Let me move it to this side."
No, just kick the Scantron over just a little bit.
Yeah. I just need to be able to see I just need to be able to follow where you're going. I was so bad looking back. Like, when they had all those tests, like those tests to test where you're at as a student, so how the school's getting, I would just go abacadabra.
Yep.
Like, just to get them done. Like, everybody, I'm sitting around. I never read, like, probably after the first couple questions, I would get bored. I'm like,
yep. And
done.
To be like quite honest with you guys, man, with the Scantron, I used to put like CarMax on the side of the barcode, so like it wouldn't mark anything when it scanned through, because it marks on those little black lines. So I would put
So you were outsmarting the Scantron?
But it never, I don't know if it ever worked, but I did it. So,
well, hey, man, got us to where we're at today, right? So let's talk about where you're at today. So you are a very unique guy. I would say that's probably putting it mildly, but in a really good way. Like, I really like your character. The guy who cracks me up is Tony. I mean, I just love that guy. He's, and then I like, who's the Asian guy?
Timmy Vu.
Yeah. And I actually, when I saw that with you one time, it got me like looking up that old guy who used to be the real Timmy Vu.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bring it back, like with all the girls.
Yes.
And So where are you at right now with your real estate career? You worked at Brian Pelican's office as an agent. You decided really quickly you didn't want to become one. you want to become an investor. I mean, I was doing the math in my head when you were talking, and I'm like, he started real estate investing the same time I really started, like was at 28. And or got into the real estate game at 28. Like that's when I moved to Vegas at 28 and started selling houses.
Yeah.
So we have a very similar, and I started in REO. So our career path is somewhat the same, even though I started a little bit earlier than you because I'm older than you.
Yeah.
8 years older than you, actually.
Yeah.
So where are you at now, right now?
Yeah, so I'm still actively flipping, wholesaling. Prior to COVID, we had a large operation. We were nationwide. We were doing stuff in St. Louis, Chicago, Pittsburgh, LA. And then right when COVID hit, we scaled back. So predominantly now we're in Las Vegas, LA, Arizona, and in the Midwest, in Arkansas.
Okay.
So those are...
Don't tell people in Arkansas that it's the Midwest. They're going to argue with you on that.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Yeah. You might want to say you're in the South.
I'm in the South.
Just let you know, man. Arkansas folks. I really like that market. So what part of the market are you in?
In Arkansas?
Yeah.
So major cities, maybe 30 minutes outside of major places like Fayetteville, Bentonville, Rogers, just kind of staying in those areas that are getting gentrified. And there's actually a bunch of small little towns out and around that.
That's cool. Like. How much are you paying for those houses?
Way less than what I'm paying for them here.
Like 50 grand, 60, 70, 80?
80, 60. I bought a complete teardown that was 20,000, but it sits on an acre and a half.
So it's 20 grand. What's your plan on that one? Let's go through that one.
Yeah, so 20,000. I'm waiting for plans and permits to get drafted up. Then I'll do a complete kind of teardown. I'll keep the foundation. I'll add an additional maybe 600, 700 square feet, because right now it's currently 700. Add another 700 square feet for now.
I like the way you're saying this is like super easy, doing it from Las Vegas. For those of you guys who are listening, Tyson's been at this a long time. What he's doing is a pretty complicated process, and he's playing it way down because it's super, like, that's cool that you're doing that, but I've done a lot of that, and it's very, very complicated.
Yeah, like this is dumbed down. Like it is significantly dumbed down. But yeah, it requires a lot of plans, permits, a lot of footwork. I'm gracious enough that I have some contractors that I trust, that I know their skill level because they worked with me out here. So they're helping with.
So you set your crews there.
Yeah, and that's the most important stuff,
right?
It
is,
because if I don't have a solid crew, I wouldn't be able to do any of this. From here,
right.
I would have to go consistently out there.
Yes.
So the plan on that is to add an additional some square footage. Great thing in some of those areas, you don't necessarily have to pull a bunch of permits, or you can add things.
100%. Yeah. I'm on the same page. Yeah. I've been flipping in Mississippi for a long time.
You can add some really cool stuff without getting mocked by the city and stuff.
Right. Like yeah. It's funny, when I first started buying in Mississippi, there was actually only 2 counties that required permits. I was investing in them, Harrison and Jackson.
Yeah.
And I think, but now, you could literally build a house any way you wanted it. You didn't need a permit, which is contrary to us, which is really our rights. You know what I mean? But now they want to get money. They want to get this. They want to get that. Yeah. So you got to get permits.
Long term with that property is to hold it, make it all nice, 1,400 square feet, maybe add another an additional dwelling unit on it, maybe 2. Because it's really close to the lake. It's really close to the inner city. So
Airbnb.
Yeah, Airbnb. That's kind of the goal out there in those cities where that money makes sense. Because here, I've kind of shied away, aside from referrals, short sales, and probates. Direct to sell marketing out here in these big major metropolis cities have become a little bit more convoluted, and the spreads aren't as good as they used to be. Back in 2016, 17, foreclosures were hot. I loved foreclosures, and that's what I mainly focused on, back then. And the spreads were a lot better than they are now. I used to hit a lot of grand slams. Now I'm lucky if I hit a base hit.
Right. And that, that's the reason I moved out to Kansas City, is just because I have multiple houses out here. I can't even tell you how many text messages I get, just brand new to probably flipping, and they got a text messaging platform, and they're like, all right, here's all the equity people. And that's what everybody's feeling too. And so, you gotta, if you're going to continue to evolve, you got to try other markets. You got to try other things.
Yeah, different marketing tactics, different things. I love Vegas. Vegas is a hometown, but
100. For the last 15 years.
Yeah, if if it no longer fits, you got to shift, you know, and that's just what I've learned over the course of this. Like, this is equally as much as a marketing game as it is like a real estate game, you know, and you got to shift with the tides. You got to shift with what's going on. Back in 2016, 17, nobody was text messaging, you know, like there were very few people text messaging.
Right.
And then now every other course that's online is telling you text message.
You know what they need to do? Text messaging videos.
You know, that's funny that you mentioned that, Troy, because in 2016, 17, if you guys don't have a bunch of money, I used to use Google Voice, and you can send up to like 75 to 100 text messages on Google Voice for free, as long as you have a Gmail account. Right. So what I did is when I hired my first couple...
Multiple Gmail accounts, you can send more, right?
Yep. I set up my acquisitions guys, and then I got them on like 3 or 4 emails, and then they were able to text through Google Voice for free. I would just have a script, and they would just have to change the name and then the address, and then we would just send those out. We would send them a little link to a Google Drive that would have a video of like me saying, hey, you know, I'm sure you got the text, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Video texts are...
I think where we're going, the only reason I say that is people are scared to click on links because they don't know if that's going to be a hack on their phone.
Oh, yeah.
So if there was a way to figure out, and I'm sure there is, to send out a video just right at it, that's going to separate you from the guys that are just texting the same thing over and over again. And, you know, I don't know if you know Casey Ryan very well. Yeah, so he's a friend of mine, and I've talked to him. He's probably the guy who changed the whole game on the text messaging, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so a lot of guys have followed his lead, but because of that, you know, they're not text messaging in other markets, but Vegas is very active with texting.
Yeah. He's great, by the way. Like, he showed me a lot, especially because we were using a very similar platform, you know, back in the day. I always did things a little bit differently. So my first text message was always the first name with the question mark.
Right.
Because, you know, I would either get 2 responses, like no or who is this, you know?
Right.
So, and then if I know if it's who is this, then I'm going for the
That's
next.
what I would respond.
Yeah.
Who's this?
Yeah. So I
Troy?
know it's you.
Yeah, it's me. Who's this? Yeah. So that's interesting, man. You know, I have a good buddy, Ryan, that I've met out in Missouri, who's like did 72 wholesale deals his first year.
Wow, that's amazing.
And he's up to like 100 and something this year. Ryan Haywood. Anybody who's listening, they can listen to watch that video on YouTube. I've got 2 videos of me interviewing him. But he's in a market where the phone rings when postcards drop, and we're not in that market.
No.
Have you ever had your phone ring out here
With postcards?
Yeah.
No.
Right.
I've never really been incredibly successful with postcards. Just because when I first started, I needed money, you know, and postcards are a long game. Right. They work
in certain markets.
Yeah, in certain markets, specific type of design and consistency. Like all marketing works. It's just the level of consistency on it.
Right.
So, you know, putting out those postcards never really worked for me. I'd prefer to door knock. Like I'm a guerrilla marketing type guy.
Me too. So just kind of going into what our audience is. Our audience is generally like 17 to 34-year-old males, skewing 80%, and then we kind of pick up another 20% up to about 45 years old. And a lot of these guys, they are blue-collar guys working in the field and stuff like that. What would you give advice to somebody who's like got that mindset of I should quit my job, but where do I start? What would you tell somebody? Because you made that move at some point in time. I remember you were working at 24-Hour Fitness, and you made that move, and you haven't looked back, and it's probably, I would guess, been the best move you've ever made?
100%. Yeah, 100%. The advice that I would give somebody that's interested in quitting their job, do they have a deal yet? Do they do a deal yet or no?
I guess they're brand new. They're listening to us. They just have that internal talk in their head, like they're looking for something good because they're listening to our show. They're trying to educate themselves. If you're trying to educate yourself out there, Tyson, I know you've got a YouTube channel, and I know you got Instagram. I think they should go on that.
Yeah, for sure. At Tyson DeLaCruz on Instagram and at Tyson DeLaCruz on YouTube. I do have a section for real estate content. You know, there's easy to use tools like PropStream, Property Radar, you know, quick and easy skip tracing.
I like PropStream. I just started playing with that.
PropStream's actually really cool. I like it. My advice to somebody just getting started is, you know, first, you got to define your investment strategies, like what your investment principles are, you know, and then you got to look at everything as a whole. Like, do you have a family? You know, do you have other responsibilities? Because, you know, if you have a family and other things going on, you have to have that influx of money. So you have to figure out, you know, what's going to work best for you and your family. But I would say if you haven't done a deal yet, I wouldn't recommend jumping off the ship. I would say once you get that first deal and you kind of got your toes wet, then I would say, that's enough confidence to keep rocking and rolling, if you have a family. It's just me. So if you're just Han Solo, just jump off the boat.
Jump off.
Yeah, because your bounce back is a lot quicker if it's just you.
Right.
I ate peanut butter and jellies and rice and beans for a very long time.
Yes, sir. Top
and
ramen.
Yeah. I actually grew up on that stuff. So I was like, yeah, this is great.
Yeah, I'm good with it too. I'm like, oh, that smells like home cooking.
Yeah, but anybody who's just ready to jump, like get that first deal, get some money in the bank, and then really think about your standard operating procedures. I think that was a component that a lot of people miss out on, is like, what are your standard operating procedures when you get a deal? How do you transact a deal? What happens after you close that deal? And then once you have those standard operating procedures, you're able to give those to somebody else.
Right.
And then you can automate your business just a little bit more.
Right. And in real estate, we know it's never really fully automated.
No.
One thing I do think is a good business, and I've been thinking about this a lot. So I actually had seen a lot of guys start posting about Turo. I looked at it, I'm like, that is a freaking great way for a young investor to get started. Mm-hmm. If they want to get into the real estate game and it's too big for them to see, how it can be intimidating with real estate?
Yeah.
If you got a car and you're trying to learn about how to make money, how to deal with customers, how to rent out a depreciating asset on your taxes and get money, buy a $5,000 car, put it on Turo, and get your feet wet, right? So I'm putting a whole series right now. I've rented 4 Turos. I got one right now. And then I'm going to Turo my car, my Raptor. And I'm going to buy another car instead. And I'm actually going to buy a Porsche. I was not going to buy a Porsche because Ryan Pineda bought one, and I was literally going to buy that car. And then I'm going to look like a copycat. And then Josh Calindo bought one, and I'm like, I live in Kansas City right now,
so nobody knows.
I don't care.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get what I want. I don't know which kind of Porsche I want, but I'm going to get that. I'm going to put my Raptor on Turo, but I'm going to get one of the guys that I rented my Turo to run it for me, and then if that works out well, then I'll have him Turo the Porsche, and then I'll buy another car, and I'll have him Turo that. Because everybody that I'm talking to, when I rent a Turo from, I ask them one question: how many cars do you have, and how much money are you making a month?
Yeah,
and it's incredible.
It is.
It's Airbnb on steroids.
It's 100%. I've met some people that just absolutely crush it in Turo. They got 5, 6, 7 cars. Just so you guys know too, they don't all have to be luxury. The luxury, the price per day goes up. But the economy cars equally sell out. You don't have to.
It's all about the fleet. If you got 10 cars that are Nissan Altimas, you're running them out.
Yep.
It's all about the reviews. It's all about your customer service. Don't go on the big cars. The big cars you make less money on. You got more freaking maintenance on. I rented an electric Jaguar. I don't even know what it's called right now, but I realized today it doesn't have a cup holder. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's not all about having the nice cars. And the nice cars are really about yourself. That's the one you want to keep for yourself once you get some money going in about what you want if you're a car guy. But I'm not a car guy. Well, I found out there's a lot of people that are car guys because when we were shopping for this car, I was going to get a McLaren. I was going to have that super badass car out here to rent out when I'm out here. And I could it was about the social media flex. OTEP over here is you got to flex, boss. That's what he's telling me. He's people don't know. They don't know that what you're doing. They don't believe it until they see it. And I was like, okay. Since I'm moving up there, I do need a car here. I'll buy a McLaren. Then I did the research on the McLaren, and I realized that it's a loser in terms of money. It's a cool, fancy car, but it's a loser. You're not making money. Not many people renting. Not many people afford. But I looked at that Porsche, and the Porsche, besides the Polaris Slingshot, you know what the Polaris Slingshot is?
Yeah.
Besides that, it is the best return on your investment.
Yeah.
It rents for good money. It's inexpensive compared to things. And so I was like, I'm going to get that. I'm watching Ryan's stuff on social. I'm like, oh, dude, he just killed me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
those Slingshots rent out good, man.
Big time.
A buddy of mine has two of them, and they're rented out every weekend. And he pulled a note on it. So you
can finance it.
Yeah, so he financed it.
America's First Credit Union is financing them. Is that who you got it from?
No, I don't know, but that's a great plug.
Yeah, America's First Credit Union will finance any all-terrain vehicle. If you want to, I finance my Razors off of them, everything.
That's great, man. Because what's the note on that? $200?
$200. You got your insurance that's maybe $400 a year, and you're renting out a Slingshot for $200 a day.
Yep.
5 days a month, $1,000. Your total payment $600. At that, if you rent it out for 10 days in Vegas, in a town like where you want the top down and you want to cruise around, there's not a lot of rain. That's a good move.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we're in this age, Troy, that's so technology driven, where anybody can really make money out of anything. You know, like e-commerce, great way, drop shipping, Turo, wholesaling real estate virtually, NFTs.
I got an idea. I think someone needs to come up with the next, it could be me, come up with the next competitor for, this is going to sound really crazy, the next competitor, OnlyFans. So somebody needs to come up with a competitor for that. That's one idea, okay? Like Top Talent is the name I came up with. It could be whatever. It's just the same thing, just giving people access to put their pictures out there.
Yeah.
My other thing is, because of the Turo, and I see there's a lot more things that we're coming into the shared economy is what I believe.
Yeah.
If you have like if you are an app developer, please get a hold of me, because I'm 100% serious about what I just said and what I'm about ready to say. Another app that you could rent out your tools, your truck, or whatever you have. So it's like, okay, I've got, like, especially because I know this, construction guys a lot of time, they don't have the money to buy tools. And there's like, might be a tool like a scissor lift, or might be a tool like a dump trailer or whatever that I need for this day, and you got it. And I want to book it out, and I can rent it from you. And there's an app just like Turo that I can go and say, that says that, hey, I'm a good guy, I rent and I pay, and you're a good guy and you have good reviews. And guess what? I need that freaking Sawzall today, and I'll rent it for $30 a day because I don't have the $100 to buy it.
Absolutely, man.
And then that guy who's got all his tools, who cares about his tools, who doesn't want to sell his tools, but he needs money, he's in business.
Yeah, because the only place that you can get some of that stuff is Home Depot, Cat, and it's like...
Well, you want to rent a Bobcat, your Sunbelt Homes. Yeah. I'm renting a freaking, I forget what it's called, like a lumber forklift. Yeah. I was almost considering buying it because how much we're paying for just 4 weeks.
Yeah.
$4,000, you know, and so if a guy's got that, I know what that cost is. It's $55,000. He's financing $55,000 over whatever amount of years, 7-8 years. That's not a big payment to make up if he's renting that thing out all the time.
Right. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's
so the other app, so I've got a few app ideas I would throw at you because I like your feedback. So the other app is, I really believe like WhatsApp almost nailed it until they got bought out. And I think if there was another type of WhatsApp, for all my businesses, I use WhatsApp. Yep. So every single business that I have, we communicate through WhatsApp because it's the best chatting platform.
Yeah.
But what it doesn't allow us to do is incorporate any sort of currency sending money. Mm-hmm. If it did allow us to do that, it would be the perfect app. So that's another app. Final app for you, Tyson. Okay, the final app is, I'm a golfer, and you lose your golf balls. And I'm pretty sure somebody already bought the patent that says you can't do this. But if someone could create a chip just like that followed my app, that I could go and find my freaking golf ball with the GPS thing in it, that I didn't have to spend all day long looking for this thing. And even when I lose it and say, I'm not going to go find it, but I know where it is and I'm going to delete that one off my app.
Yeah.
At least I don't have to spend tons of time looking for it. Yes, I know what people are going to say, become a better golfer so you don't have that problem. But right now...
That's not the case.
Yes, right now that's not happening. So those are my app ideas.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
Dude, I like the WhatsApp, man. You know, there's a couple other, like Google Drive, like I think of Google Drive and Dropbox and things like that. A lot of them have different functionalities, but not all of them have like a chat component, ability to actually duplicate and share folders and things like that. So you're lighting my brain up, man.
Yeah, you know, I'm a just big dreamer. I throw out a lot of weird stuff. Like I literally, that OnlyFans thing came from an idea I had. This will be funny. Like people who know me back from 2018, I was like, you know, right when the adult sites first started, I was like, that's going to be a moneymaker. So I bought like somebody's off eBay, like their whole disc at that point in time.
Yeah,
and then
their whole collection.
Yeah, it was called worldbeaver.com.
Wow.
It never launched, you know. So, you just hold back to it. You know, some ideas are good, some ideas are bad. I own a towing company right now. We're in the process of selling that. That was a bad idea.
Yeah.
And, you know, but you got to try stuff out.
Dude, you do, man. Like you got to fail. I've done a lot of startups. I've sold a couple startups.
What have you done? What have you failed at?
Man, there was this like movie startup. It was basically a secondary platform, almost like Movie Phone. Maybe some 17-year-olds definitely will definitely not know Movie Phone, but
Kramer.
Yeah. You know, you used to call and you have to wait for the movies, and yeah, you can go online now with Fandango, but this was a time when Fandango just kind of launched.
Right.
And it was a similar like competitor app to Fandango. And to pitch the movie theaters to get on board with that. They didn't understand it at the time. This was like 2017 or something like that, you know?
Right.
And it took off with a couple spots, like local, smaller movie theaters, but the big chains like the Centuries didn't necessarily bite on it. And it was a kind of like a social movie app where the people can actually, almost like a Yelp, like a mix between Yelp too,
right?
Where people can leave their review of the movie.
Yelp's only good for food, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like a Rotten Tomato Yelp kind of mix.
Okay.
That didn't work out well. I spent like a year doing that.
But you learned something from it?
Yeah. I it sharpened up my marketing skills, sharpened up my ability to do some online stuff and sales skills.
You know what I just learned right now as you're talking? I'm like, I'm never ever hiring somebody who I'm trying to teach how to build apps. Like that's where I've gotten burned the most is like when I like think this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I've learned that over the years too, man, is like early on, especially when I started building businesses, I would just hire somebody, like a body.
Yeah.
You know?
Can you fog a mirror?
Yeah.
You're in.
Yeah.
You showed up.
Yeah.
You showed up for the interview.
You can write? Cool. Your name?
Yeah.
Daddy.
I don't care.
So yeah, I would just hire somebody and it would never work out well. Now I'm in the mindset of I got to hire somebody that has an expertise in something. So I don't necessarily have to learn it to teach them how to do it. Like I really want them to show up with something valuable, you know?
Right.
And to find those people is very hard.
It's super hard to find somebody that's going to be as passionate as you about anything.
Yeah.
And that is the constant struggle. You know, we just lost an employee the other day who was a good employee, like in terms of like work ethic and stuff, but I didn't feel like, you know, my core values were on the same thing. And that's one thing that I'm working on doing is trying to be better about working on my business than in my business. It's just so hard because I like what I do.
Yeah. Like you and I share that similarity. I enjoy being kind of in the mud too. I enjoy still talking to sellers. I enjoy negotiating deals still. Like I enjoy going to, like after this, I'm going to go check on this apartment complex I have that we finally got all the tenants out. And I just love like,
let's talk about that deal.
The smell of fresh lumber and all that stuff. Yeah. That deal has been an absolute major learning experience.
That's why I could tell when you said I'm coming to check out on my empty apartment building. So what
major Where's
it at? Is it on Fremont?
It's off of 5th.
North 5th?
Yes.
In North Las Vegas.
Yeah, in North Las Vegas.
Okay, yes. I know that. Is it by the 7-Eleven over there?
It's in the the college streets, so like
right Yale. Where you get off of Lake Mead there?
Yeah.
Is it right
Harvard,
in that area?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's my stomping grounds, bro.
Great for you. I've never worked with renters that are in that type of demographic before because it's a different demographic.
Yes, for sure, 100%. You gotta. That's my only demographic I've worked with.
It's an interesting demographic.
Yes.
Their priorities are funky, you know.
If you don't have money, and you want me to help you?
Yeah, please, because I am lost.
Yeah, I mean, first thing I learned, and I learned this the hard way, just like you're probably going to learn this, but like you want to believe people. Yeah. That's what we want to do as human beings. We want to believe that what you're saying to me is true and genuine. You wouldn't use something to try to manipulate me and get what you want, would you? But the truth is, listen, we deal with low income demographics and we have great tenants. I just want to say that. But to filter to get that is a big game. And that's why a lot of people get out of investing is because they're not able to do that. And when you're dealing with a lower demographic, you can't give an inch, right? You cannot give an inch in terms of what your expectations are, and you can't take their word for things. I'm going to give you an example. I used to get all these people that would come to me, and the first thing that they would say is they put you on this offensive, not this thing, but they put you in their position to feel for them. Like I had this girl going, like, why are you moving out? My landlord has bed bugs. I realized that anybody who says that actually is the carrier of the bed bugs, and they just gave their landlord bed bugs.
Yes.
So that was one thing I learned. And then the other thing is just like, you know what? If they are low income and everything that they explain just matches, if they have just a negative attitude, if they're super duper nice on the phone, it's a total act. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I've learned that so very hardly. Like that's... You know, when I first acquired this asset, they were so nice. And then I get there, the first meeting, so nice. Then I got to evict them or like collect rent. Excuse, you know, and it's an interesting demographic because it's not it's a low income, but then there's like this, if they miss an hour of work or something happens, their phone bill goes over, like they're in a tough spot. Like they don't even have enough money in some scenarios to buy a Snickers bar at the 7-Eleven, like they're super tight.
Right.
And they don't get a subsidy because they make too much money, whatever that amount is.
Yeah, and a lot of times you'll find that they have the new PlayStation 5.
Oh, and gold teeth.
And
yeah, I was like, dude, you got gold teeth. You haven't paid rent in 6 months. That's where my rent's at.
yeah, like you just got a new grill and you got a bill.
Yeah.
And your grill's paid for and your bill's not.
Yeah.
You just have to, you got to be a hard no. You can't give an inch. Like I said, like I've even had some of my employees that have taken the reins and been like, yeah, I'm going to give this guy some breaks. And then they've got bit, but they've taken that on their own when they've known specifically that I don't roll that way. We evict on the 5th. We start the eviction process on the 5th. The rent is due on the 1st. We start the eviction on the 5th. Everybody's getting a note. Everybody's knowing, and we're evicting right away. And you're getting out.
I love that.
We're setting the tone. That's the tone. And guess what? We're being gracious. We're fixing things that need to be fixed. We're charging them for air filters. We're requiring them to get renter's insurance, the whole bit. Okay? And we will help them. Like if there's certain things, like one thing I found out that it's not a good move, but if you're getting a desperate situation, you can just get some money, fill out some paperwork for assistance for them and stuff like that because...
Yeah, I've done that, and that's been a learning process, man. Like it's been a definite learning process. They gave me some money. I did fill out some assistance because this is all the time like during, the pandemic and stuff. So, I was able...
Is that over yet?
I don't know. People are still wearing face diapers and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's silly.
They're great.
I don't know. If
I sneezed in one the other day. It was brutal.
Yeah.
If you could get a visual, dude, I had to scrap the mask.
Oh man, it's definitely been interesting to navigate through my relationship with those tenants. They're all out now, finally repairing everything. It's crazy because
how many units is it?
It's 5.
So it's a 5-plex.
Yep.
I know where it's at. How many bedrooms? How many baths?
So the front unit has 3 beds. There's a small, like 350 square feet studio. That's a 1 bed. And then the one in the back is a 2 bed. And then the others are 1s.
Right. So just knowing where you're at the point in time when I bought these properties was 2011. My rents were like $499 for 2 bedroom, 1 bath. And I would have guessed right now you're probably in the 600 range on that. Yeah.
It's funny because the rents were still the same. Like the previous owner didn't increase rents, didn't really fix anything. Like, the subfloor was so tore up. Like the toilet, one of the tenants put bricks on the toilet so it wouldn't fall through the subfloor. The gray and the black water was literally just going underneath the house.
Yeah, bad tenants and bad landlords go well because the bad tenant will just fix the stuff on their own because the landlord just ignores them.
Yeah.
And they know they're getting cheap rent.
Yeah. So, going in, after we fix everything, we're definitely going to source out some better tenants, man.
So are you like going in there? Are you updating everything? Are you trying to make it super nice or what's your...
We just went in there and updated everything. New floor, some new vinyl plank. We had to do new subfloor. Windows were busted. Angle stops, like the whole 9 basically. Got some used cabinets off of OfferUp. Yeah, because I didn't need, fancy new RTAs. I just... And the kitchen's the way
that... What's RTA stand for?
Ready to assemble.
Oh.
Yeah. You know that, dude.
I didn't know.
Oh.
No, I'm the guy who asked what I don't know.
So ready to assemble. Those are typically like the white shakers and stuff like that. I bought some builder grade cabinets that were pulled out of a house. It's great because you can kind of set up the kitchen however you want. Just kind of make it nice,
So let's go through the numbers on the investment. So I'm guessing it's a 5-plex. I'm going to just go and say that you're going to gross $3,000 off that place.
Yeah, that's about right.
What did you pay for the deal? What are you putting into the deal? Are you borrowing money on the deal? Walk our audience through the deal so that they know what like one of your investments look like.
Yeah, so this property was a subject to. So
what's a subject to?
Kept the existing mortgage in place. The existing mortgage was $928.
Okay.
There was back payments of about $8,000, and then I gave the homeowner $20,000, so a total of 28.
Yep.
With escrow fees because I did it through escrow.
Okay.
So we're probably out like 32.
So we're at $32,000 before we start working on the house. Okay. Got it.
And then my budget allotted for it was 40. I honestly, I didn't foresee subfloor and stuff like that. So probably going to be in it like 55, maybe 60.
Okay. So 60,
Yeah.
let's say 60. So you're in it for, you said 38 plus 60. So we'll just call it $100,000.
Yeah.
What's the property worth?
Property's probably worth 450-ish, 460, something like that.
460. Man,
Yeah,
the market has changed. I was buying those houses for like $50,000 back then.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah. So 460.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
What's the debt left on it?
The debt is about 215.
So you got 140,000 in profit.
Yeah.
Is that about right?
That's about right. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So are you going to refi out afterwards?
It just depends on how it's going to look when it's done. I've been reaching out to potentially refi out of it, or I might just sell the asset. I'm not 100% sure.
dump it.
Yeah, that's kind of what
I'd fill it up with good tenants and dump it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking is maybe get some subsidized rent, like maybe somebody who's in the...
Sell it when it's at its best.
Has veteran
just get
housing assistance.
Get 2 or 3 tenants in there.
Fill it up and then show the market rent and then dump it because it's been a headache and I don't want to mess with it anymore.
So let me give you like my status check on
yeah, I'd love to know that.
Tenants, how I view the scale of tenants. You have your lowest tenant would be homeless, right? They don't have a home. So they're just going to squat on a sidewalk or something, or maybe move into one of
in the back,
or maybe break into one of our properties and live there. And then you have somebody, who may be living, camping or something like that. But then we go into the real like renters, and we have renters who start, they got a fixed income and they have a trailer and they're renting $300 or $400 for the slab to live in that trailer, which they own, right? Or they pay rent on or something like that. That is probably one of the lower types of tenants. I would say the lower or as low as that type of a tenant is somebody who lives in a not so nice multifamily small unit with no amenities, right? So generally they're renting from a landlord who's not doing credit checks. Generally they're renting from landlords who don't know enough information, and therefore they are usually the least qualified tenants. Generally they're renting in the only location that they can get in areas that have no good school districts or no amenities as well. And so if you're going to be the lowest quality product, you got to track the highest quality tenant in that product line. Then from there, that's why I've stayed into single family dwellings. The reason I say this is because people don't really want to live in a fourplex. They just can only afford to live in a fourplex or a triplex or a duplex. Everybody wants to live in a home, in my opinion. Some folks might want to live in apartment buildings with lots of amenities and stuff like that. Like if it's got a pool, if it's got this, if they're young or if they're old and they don't want to deal with landscaping and stuff like that. But I found that most people really want a home. And so when I look at those fourplex deals and stuff like that, I'm like, yeah, that's cool. That's 50, 60, 70, 80 a door or whatever. I could buy a house for that. Yeah. I might not be able to get the same loan, but I found that just those types of tenants, because that's where I started. I started exactly on the street that you're at, just a little bit further down on Stats and on Cre8ve.
Oh man, I had a fourplex on Stats.
I've had several.
That was brutal because I was very early on in my real estate career. I didn't know how to navigate through tenants. I didn't know how to navigate through that demographic. Washers and dryers were like paid. Those were going missing every weekend. Oh, yeah. It was nuts. Yeah, I was like, what am I doing?
So the funny thing is, and it kind of takes me down the rabbit hole a little bit further. So I started there. Like when I first started selling real estate, I'm selling for the banks, like you, for the REOs, and I just start making a pile of money. And I know I want to invest in real estate, but I don't know much still. And I'm selling for these banks and they're training me. And I sort through the MLS by price. I'm like, let's just buy the most cost effective. The most cost effective.
The most not cheap.
The most inexpensive house that we can possibly buy. Yes. Because people hate that word cheap. I found it on social media. If you want engagement, use the word cheap, dude. They think automatically you're a scammer, a slumlord. Everything you've done in your career is wrong because you said that word. Anyways, so coincidentally, that happened to be in the worst areas. So I just started with my first property was literally on the corner of Cartier and Martin Luther King.
Oh my gosh.
So that's my first rental. It's 1721. It had an apartment building that was falling down next to it at the time, and there was 3 on the corner. So I started there, and it just so happened that everything else that I sorted was in that same location. And so literally all of my rentals, with the exception of 4 fourplexes, which were up on Lake Mead in Hollywood, all of my rentals were within the Martin Luther King and Lake Mead area, all of them. Okay, every single one of them, with a couple of exceptions of like stuff off Bonanza and 10th, which were, as you know, not moving up either.
Right.
And so I learned
right there by the freeway.
I learned in the streets in 2010 and 11 after I fired my property manager and dealt with all of these tenants on my own how to deal with people, right? And that's where I got my comeuppance. So then when I went to Kansas City, and I'm kind of getting a little nervous because I'm buying these properties. And I'm looking at the title, and on the title, they're not like, it's not like John Smith selling the property. It's another LLC that went bust. So I'm going, am I making the right moves here in Kansas City?
Yeah.
And I noticed a lot of furnaces are getting stolen. We know, I don't know if you cage your condensers out here. I cage all my stuff.
No, I have once.
Okay.
Yeah.
I cage pool equipment, bro.
That's awesome. It's super smart.
Well,
you know who showed me how to do that early on? Was Brandy White Elk. Actually, she does that with all of her stuff too. So
like she's like one of my best buds from like did we talk about that last time?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, she's awesome. Initially going in, I'm like, okay, furnaces, we're putting those in once the tenants are in. Like, we're not putting those in ahead of time. So you have to make adjustments, right, to the market. And so then I finally decide I've got a cage for my condenser. That's automatic. Like, we're not even thinking about that. That happens every time. That's our insurance policy up front so that thing doesn't get stolen. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, but now we need to get a cage on that furnace. And so we fabricated a cage on our furnaces now so that it anchors in that furnace to the basement because that's where all the furnaces are at. And then we board up the houses until that's how far we take it in Kansas City.
Yeah, that's interesting, man, because I've done a couple, what was it, off of, like near Walnut, Walnut area, like it was filled with squatters and a buddy of mine, Mickey, was like, hey, keep it boarded up, do all the inside, keep it, like you can put the new windows on, but keep it boarded up.
Right.
And then do the exterior paint trim like last, like right before you list it.
Yeah, and that's probably the best advice if you're getting it new and flipping and you're flipping in rough areas, board your house. Mm-hmm. Do everything out, board your house. And don't use regular screws, use Starbit screws.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I got one that's just sitting right now too. It's out in Old Henderson. It was an old cookhouse and I got to pull plans and permits on it, but that's those type of screws in it. And it's just hanging out, man.
Right. And sometimes that's what you got to do with your properties when you're buying stuff. You got to like just protect that asset, and boards are the best way. People look at boards and like, that's too much work.
Yeah.
They look at windows and like, that's a rock.
No, that's money, man.
Yeah, exactly. So I had a couple questions to ask you. You work at National Real Estate. That's where you hang your license. Is that still the case?
No, actually, in 2020, I let the license go. So, because it was just...
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, it was just, there were a couple suits and things like that, and it was just a lot of liability.
I was just going to ask you, like, I'm thinking about letting my license go. What do you think I should do?
Yeah, it was a great tool to learn, and it's a great tool to get knowledge and basic terminology. Long term, I knew it wasn't a play. I knew I wasn't going to be an agent. I was never really a good agent, right?
Me either.
I used it to get kickbacks on commissions and referrals and stuff like that. I can still do that now, but it just caused so much kind of like exposure and liability because I was acquiring the asset, then listing the asset, and it's just, there's too much of my hands in that pot. And then that's when I started outsourcing to other agents. We worked out a deal for other agents, a specific listing fee. But now I'm like, I'm good. It was actually a suit that kind of like was the last straw for me. Suit, you know.
He sued you?
Yeah. And the squatter had nothing to do with the home, wasn't affiliated with the home or anything like that.
But they found a lawyer who would sue you.
Yeah, they did, and then we spent a bunch of money in depositions and all this stuff. And by the time, it was like, you know what, this is just getting too out of hand. I'm just going to settle.
How many times have you been sued?
Like 4.
Okay, good. You're a little bit behind me.
Yeah.
I mean, it should, you know what? Listen, once you get through it, listen.
It's true.
Listen, somebody told me this a long time ago. I remember the first one, and it was very, like, probably stressful and stuff for you. But once you've been through them, it's like, dude, you just got to outlast them.
Oh, for sure. And then you got to swing first.
You always swing first. Same thing. How do you win a fight?
Yeah,
you
like
swing.
Mike Tyson says it best. He's like, they all got a game plan until they get punched
in the face. 100%. So we have a situation going on right now, actually. I have a house I'm flipping in Kansas City, and the neighbor tried to steal he was the listing agent, and he tried to steal the property through the listing. The driveway, it's not a shared driveway. He tried to make it a shared driveway and take an easement over through the listing. And now, because he didn't get that, he's like trying to sabotage me. And so like, I've been like, call my attorney. I'm like, I've tried to be nice. I saw him at the grocery store the other day.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, how you doing? And I think he thought that was like, oh, that's weakness right there. I'm going to just jump on this guy. So he just started going back to his old habits. And I'm like, you know what?
It's a shame, man. Because it's such a waste of cost, man. Sorry to cut you off, but it's such a waste of cost.
You're good.
If you're like, yo, hey, like we got this situation here. Can we come up with an amicable solution? Prior to us getting engaged with a bunch of legal costs, and we're not going to get anything out of it anyways, then it just becomes this huge, like, just pissing match. Who's right and who's wrong and who said this and who said that.
Right. Totally.
Then 6 months later, you're still tangled up in it. And I'm like, dude.
I got one going on 5 years now, and I've tried to settle with these people like 10 different times. And it's in Mississippi. My contractor put the septic tank incorrectly. It was a $4,500 cost. They waived their septic inspection. They closed us cash. We took a low offer, right? All those things. And so my attitude at the time was, you waived your septic inspection, and the contractor went and threw me under the bus that I told him to install it incorrectly, right? Which I would never do, right? Yeah, hey, man.
Install the septic incorrectly.
Yeah, hey, bro, while you're at it, put the lights on backwards.
Yeah.
That'll sell it.
Yeah.
And so, he threw me under the bus.
That?
Yeah, so, he said that to get himself off the hook and make me look bad.
For sure.
But that fueled that fire for them. So they said, $4,500, this is what it's going to cost to fix it. And I'm like, it's half your fault for not getting an inspection. I could have got more money. I could have corrected the situation. I think that we should, since if we go to court, it's up to them. And then, looking back, hindsight's 2020, I should have settled them for $4,500 and been done with it.
Same.
Yeah.
That's happened to me too. Like the first suit, my attorney was like, you should settle. And then I'm like, no, I got bigger balls.
They're huge.
I'm going in.
Yeah.
And then, a year and a half later, I'm like, no.
Why didn't you tell me to settle, bro?
Let's settle.
Yeah, I sued Alaska Airlines, and my attorney said I got kicked off the plane. Like literally escorted off the plane for doing nothing wrong. I've got like crazy stories, man. When they kicked me off the plane, it was like humiliating, right? Like because they kicked because it was just like an ego thing. Like the lady was mad that I said don't let this lady move. Right? Or whatever. I call my attorney. He's like a trusted guy. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to sue these guys. He's like, bro, you're talking to a company, an airline company that literally has permission to burn their cargo and get away with it. He's like, you're not going to win. I'm like, let's do it anyways. We got this. So
I'm going to win.
Yeah. So we go. He's like, I feel confident. It's a big legal firm here out in Las Vegas. It's Hutchinson and Steffen. The guy's name's Joe Ganley. He's a really good attorney. And so I'm like, he's like, Troy, I feel comfortable with you going in with the head negotiator there at this airline company. I'm like, okay, cool. So we go in, we're getting somewhere, we're moving the right direction, we're negotiating. And the guy he's got his top, right? He's at the top of his limit, what he can go. And I'm not satisfied with that. And so he kind of basically tells me, well, I'm done. This is what you're getting. And that's it. Like, it wasn't money. It was like a trade. It was like, you're going to get X of miles and you're going to get this VIP. And it was basically like a little feather I could hold or something like that. And I was like, that's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
I feel like because of this, that, and the other thing, long story short, he says no dice. And I say like, well, there's more than one way to skin a cat. We could always do a shareholder derivative action lawsuit. And he didn't like that. And then I went and hired another attorney, went back for a second punch at him. And we ended up getting a little bit of something, but it was just a big waste of time. I should have never done with it. Should have just moved on.
Yeah, because by the time you calculate like your time costs and
ego,
like now I'm just like, okay,
ego's your enemy, right?
What's the settle? Like what's the settle? How can we settle this thing?
Right. Yeah. Just try to work it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was a big change for me because I've always been aggressive and fight and hit first, and and now you look at it and you're like, what am I losing here?
I do see why like older attorneys or people that have been doing business for a while that have gotten sued, they've taken their licks, and when they're 60, 70, still doing business and something comes up, they're just like, oh, just settle, Yeah,
it's easier. You're like, no, let's fight it out, man.
They're like, no,
let's
just let it go.
Yeah, I think that type of stuff, only thing I found about depositions is when they ask you that question, how many times have you been deposed? And you're like,
I can't recall.
exactly. That's actually my new answer because I really can't anymore. And I'm like, I might perjure myself by answering this, you know?
It's to my best recollection that I do not recall.
Oh, you sound like you've watched a bunch of Lil Wayne depositions just like me.
I was like, how to...
Yeah, I was all over there, man. I'm watching the freaking how to conduct a deposition. The best advice if you ever get sued that I got from my attorney was a lot of people go in there with a mindset of like, I'm gonna beat this dude against me, or I'm gonna do whatever. My plan is, let's go and make friends. Let's go realize that this guy's got a job to do and that I'm his enemy, and if I make him my enemy even more, he's gonna come after me harder and heavier. No matter what, I'm gonna be as cool as a cucumber. I'm gonna be respectful, I'm gonna be polite, and I'm gonna try to make this guy like me.
That's funny that you mentioned that, man. That was one thing that my grandfather always told me. Always be cool. Like, you know, if you get in a confrontation, just always be, you know, the coolest one, the most calm one, because that energy kind of cools them down too. And they're like, oh, this guy's not that bad, you know?
Right.
I used to do it with cops when I used to get in scuffles and stuff when I was younger. It worked great.
Like, hey, man, it's all good.
Yeah.
We're just partying.
Yeah.
Like, just chill out, bro.
Yeah. But to answer your question about your license, man, ultimately that's kind of up to you. But
after you said, I'm sending it back.
Yeah.
It's gone.
And honestly, like the fees, man, like it's interesting, like that this specific, you know, Galvar has reigns over the entire market share.
Right.
And they gouge new agents, man. Like a new agent.
All agents, yeah.
Right. You know, and then you got to get the Century Lock stuff, and it's
garbage.
You know,
it's just a racket. Yeah. My license
great
is
racket, though.
Yeah. While you're listening out there, I hope you're enjoying the podcast. Would you do us a 5-star review? Share this podcast with a friend. Subscribe to the Troy Kearns channel on YouTube. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, all the other things. We are trying to provide you information to get you started. The reason we brought on Tyson is he's a real dude, and everybody identifies with somebody else differently. Somebody might identify with me and say, oh, Troy's cool, and somebody might identify with Tyson and be like, Tyson's way cooler, and I want to follow this guy. And that's what we're trying to do on this podcast, because originally when I was doing YouTube videos, they were really more podcast format when we first had you on there.
Yep.
And adjusting in my social media career, I realized that this type of form is better to just listen to in free flow and not edit, and, you know, just take out the bad words and whatnot so you don't go explicit on that thing.
Yeah.
And I just feel like having you on here is such a blessing so that you can advise young investors about what to do. What tools would you tell people who are looking to invest in real estate that they need to get started?
That's a good question, man. Like basic tools, you know, if you don't know how to use the functionality of like Google Drive or Dropbox, that's definitely something that you need. You know, I put out property photos. We still use Dropbox. We still use Google Drive for this day for all of our forms, sheets, uploading photos. And the big thing for me is to keep like track. Because if you're able to keep track of your progress, regardless on how far you go, you can always look back and say, oh, I remember that property back in 2017. Oh, I remember the struggles with that. Oh, I remember I went over budget with that. So these are the things that have adjusted over time. So, you know, Google Drive, Dropbox, and any type of data source, first off, is like, you know, PropStream, Property Radar, great tools. County Records has a lot of free stuff.
Right.
You know, a lot of free stuff.
I think PropStream, in my opinion, is the best tool I've seen out there, like where you don't need to go pull MLS data anymore.
Right. And it's pretty accurate. You know, I haven't seen a system as accurate. I'm really big on data. I love data.
Yeah.
You know, data needs to be accurate. It needs to be on point. So PropStream is the most accurate that I've experienced.
Me as well.
Aside from the direct from the county.
Right.
You know, get some type of phone calling system, some type of phone platform like a Google Voice or a sideline number from your phone, so you can differentiate the lead calls that are coming in versus like, you know, your buddies calling you.
Right.
You really want to think of this when you're starting with real estate is think of this as an actual business. Like what things would an actual business need to actually fully function? You know, it needs organization, it needs data, it needs a good sales skills. So, you know, always sharpen up those sales skills, always sharpen up that marketing. YouTube University is like a great platform to learn a bunch of different information.
Right.
And then some type of casual CRM. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Podio is a platform that I use. I had somebody custom built my Podio, but you don't need to do any of that. you can literally work off of an Excel sheet, or you can work off of a legal pad.
Correct.
You don't need a bunch of gadgets and widgets to actually get a deal done.
Correct.
Those things can actually be done down the line when you have revenue to actually do those things. I got started on a legal pad. I would write these properties down and I would door knock. And then underneath the address, I would write the time that I knocked, if I talked to the neighbors, and then I can actually see like, okay, I knocked at 8 a.m., nobody answered. I knocked at 10 a.m., nobody answered. So I'm guessing nobody's going to answer at 11. So let me try the evening time,
Right.
So you want to track how you're communicating. You got to figure out some type of way to track the data. That's it. That's all you really need to get started. And that's really like super fundamental stuff. And as your business grows, your CRM will grow, with automated responses and ringless voicemails and things like that. You don't need a bunch of fancy stuff to actually get a deal done.
Right.
Yeah.
So where do you see yourself in the next 2 years and in the next 10 years and then whatever happens after that?
That's a good question, man. 10 years is a long time, but definitely 2 years. The intention is to move out of the city.
So you're leaving Las Vegas?
Yeah. Okay. Leaving Las Vegas.
Right.
Yeah. I'd like to go somewhere that's more green. I like the Carolinas. I like Arkansas.
We
Oregon.
might be neighbors up there.
Yeah, man.
I drove through Arkansas. Got a ticket at 92.
I love it. It's all green.
Yeah, it's beautiful out there.
It's beautiful, man. They got the little light bugs.
Well, we went hiking. They got some of the best hiking in Arkansas.
Man. Dude, off the road, there's these amazing waterfalls that are just like dripping through the Ozarks. I'm like, wow, this is incredible.
I would think that move would be better than South or North Carolina just because it's less people know about Arkansas.
Yeah. And, people are great. So 2 years, definite move. And then in regards of business, I'm working on a couple other things with some medical facility stuff and housing more people, getting off of opiates and heroin. I'd like to really be engulfed into that.
Is that your passion?
You know what? I get way more fulfillment out of that.
Follow it.
Yeah. The great thing about real estate, man, is it gave me money and it gives me money to really pursue things that make me feel good.
Right.
It's almost like a necessary evil. Like I got to do it because I like the money. I like moving, doing stuff like that. But focusing on kind of halfway house stuff, I see that growing into several houses. I'd love to get a commercial space where I can house some of these people and really like make a dent in a good way to some of these communities.
Awesome.
Content, man. Like I love creating content, man. Like I love it. It's also another.
You're damn good at it, dude. Like honestly, your stuff is so funny. Like you're probably one of the only guys I actually like and comment on. Like, dude, like seriously, I'm not even kidding you because like everybody else is putting out similar stuff. And if you guys are not checking out Tyson's Instagram, you're going to get what I'm saying about. There's like lots of real estate guys that are just like me talking about stuff, but then everybody's got to find their personality, and your personality is raw. It's like a stand-up comedian meets investor. I mean, that's what it is. It's like all these characters.
Yeah. And I love doing it, man. Like it's great.
Can we bring on Tony next? I don't even want Tyson. I want to either interview, who's the Vu guy?
Timmy Vu.
Let's interview Timmy Vu next time. Can we do it?
Yeah, Timmy Vu can show up for sure.
All right, that's what we're going to do next time is we're going to interview Timmy Vu. Did you talk about the next 10 years?
The 10 year, man, the 10 years tough, man. The 10 years so far.
What's the dream?
The
dream.
Man, the dream. I've always had this vision of buying this big kind of old school. I love plantation homes, like old school plantation homes.
Yeah.
Big old front yard, maybe overlooking, a lake. Like Northern California has some nice stuff like that, but Arkansas.
That's your play, right?
Yeah.
Arkansas.
And then just
master flip.
Like animals and chickens.
We're on the same page, bro.
Because like I've realized that this, regardless on what you do in life, like money is always going to come if you put the work into it.
Right.
You can also get caught up in the hamster wheel, which I can do sometimes.
Right.
When I'm in places like that where I'm at peace.
Right. Does your anxiety level go down?
It does, man.
100.
Anxiety goes down, like my shoulders drop.
Right.
And that's what I want to feel all the time, because when I'm in that space, I'm more creative,
Right.
and I'm more loving to like my family and friends.
Right. Yeah.
So that's a huge thing, man. Like, so 10 years, man, like just totally off grid, man. Like I'd like to be off grid and have some passive some more passive income through Airbnbs, through the behavioral health. And
man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming in. I can tell you one thing right now. Every time I talk to you, I'm like, dude, we have so much in freaking common, dude. It's like crazy, dude. Like I bought a piece of land in Mississippi, 63 acres, like in 2011. You know what I mean? And it's not the place that I'm going to do what you're talking about, but that in my head it was. It's my wife is never going to go for it. It's like in population 0.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing around it. And so good for me, not good for the family, like you said. So that's maybe the 10-year plan for me is something like that. I just enjoy talking to you every time. I feel like you have a lot of good information. I feel like you're a super cool dude. And I think that everybody who's listening to us right now, if you're not following Tyson on YouTube, if you're not following me on YouTube, Troy Kearns channel on YouTube, if you're not following Tyson DeLaCruz on all of his socials, on all his YouTubes, you really should be. And follow as many other people that we talk about as possible, because you may not identify with me. You may say, Troy, you're a total prick. I don't like the way you talk. And you may say, Tyson, you're just too like zen for me, but you need to get started in real estate. It's changed his life. It's changed my life, and it can change your life.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like real estate's flipped my life around entirely, and I'm so grateful for it.
Or Turo, whatever.
Yeah.
So thank you for tuning in to the Troy Kearns podcast. We went down the rabbit hole today with Tyson DeLaCruz. We look forward to seeing you soon. Make sure you give us a 5-star review and share this video with a friend. Peace.